Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope that your October is off to a great start. I truly can't believe that it's already October. I feel like September was just starting, and here we are in October. But I am so excited to be here today. I have a really fun episode of an idea that we can use in our classrooms. And so I just think let's just jump right into it today. So I'll be honest, this was a difficult episode to title because I'm not really sure if a title can do this exercise justice in explaining it. This is an exercise that I have used for many years, and I started off doing it just for like a fun thing. But doing it for fun, I also realized how much value was in this particular exercise because this is almost like an improv combo. I mean, yes, I'll say that this is an improv based exercise. But the cool thing about this exercise is whether you do improv in your class or not, this is a great way to bring it into your classroom experience. This could be done in probably almost any style. I feel that it can be truly adapted, but you're going to also hear about how I do this exercise and how I use a variety of styles of dance and music within it. So, to start off, let's talk a little bit about improv combinations. So, you might be familiar with this, and basically, with improv combination, it's a loosely structured type of combination that we are giving to our students that maybe we're setting like a framework of choreography for, but they then are able to really dive into their own style and exploration with their ability to maybe do each movement on their own counts. So maybe they're deciding like the musicality of it. Maybe we're also changing direction, or you're asking the dancers to try the movement in different areas or different levels of space. So there's a lot of different ways we can go about doing an improv combination. The goals could be different depending on what you are hoping to achieve that day or what like learning lesson that you are focusing on. So if it's musicality, if it's timing, if it's place of space, things like that. There are so many ways that you can take improv combinations and structure the goals to what you're looking for. And I've done improv combinations myself in the past. And the one thing that I had difficulty with as a learning person was because the improv didn't have a structure to it, I had a difficult time remembering certain things. So, like if the choreographer had set a specific set of phrases, and then it was my job to bring those phrases out however my body was wanting to do it, and in whatever timing or space my body was moving to, sometimes I had a hard time keeping track of the order and sequence of things. And so I felt it was really important for me to then bring improv combination work into my classes because knowing that I had a difficult time with it, I felt, okay, maybe my students will too. And because of that, that's something important that we need to work through together. And it also really gets them experiencing their own style, but also like the way that they hear music, which I think is very important. So I started thinking about like how can I do this but provide just a little bit of structure and a little bit of order to help them through this. And that is where this concept of using the alphabet came up. So I use in this particular exercise that I'm discussing today the ABCs. I use the alphabet. And so, what this does using the alphabet is it helps provide a loose structure so that dancers are then able to remember the order of things. So, as they're moving and dancing and trying to fit their movement to the music, they might know, like, okay, I'm on C now. So, what comes next? Okay, D. And it's a quick little thing that they're able to then get back on track in the order. So let's sort of explain this a little bit. So here I'm talking about improv combos, I'm talking about the alphabet. I hope I haven't lost you yet, but here I'm going to get into the explanation. So, with this exercise, I'm going to speak it just as I would teach it. So, to start off, everyone in the room is going to find a space that is for them. They can face any direction in the room, and they could also start at any level that they want. So, if they want to start on the floor, if they want to start in standing, facing back, wherever, it just needs to be their choice. So, with this exercise, I begin with the alphabet. And so I'm going to give a movement for the letter A. I'm going to give a movement for the letter B, and so on. But it's the dancer's job to spend as much time as they want within that letter before moving on to the next. And it's also the dancer's job to decide how are they going to transition from movement A to movement B. So for example, if you're doing this in a any kind of dance class movement, here we'll just use direction words or action words. So for letter A, say the word is action. Action is the start. So how are you as a dancer going to take action and start? And then they're moving through, and then maybe B is backwards. So maybe they're doing some type of a movement that then faces the back. And then maybe C is circle. So maybe they're doing something that has a circular feel. So far in their combination, they have taken action to start, they face the back, they move into a circle. Then maybe for D, they go down onto the floor. Okay, so you're kind of seeing how this is going. So I'm using the alphabet as a structure for the movement that is happening. I've also used this with dance terms. So, for example, A, maybe we begin in arabesque. They have an arabesque moment. And then after that, B, they go into a balance, followed by C, a chaîné turn. And obviously, there are so many different ways that we can go about this. I mean, there are so many dance terms for the letter A, for the letter B, C, and so on. So you can really like build these combinations and make them different every single time you do this exercise. And already you might start to see how this can play into different subject areas. So, like using terminology in ballet, this might be a really fun and helpful way to get your dancers working with terminology and in a different structure. So, remember, the ground rules of this is that they can start however they want and whenever they want. They can time these movements through the letters however they'd like, and they're using the letters as a framework. It is also a part of their job to decide on their transitions. So I explained to them, you can't just move from A to B. I mean, well, some of the movements you probably could, but you can't just move from letter A to letter B, just one movement after the other. You need to select a transitional movement that will help you through the space to dance your way. We don't want to show wow moment after wow moment after wow moment. We want to have that dancing in between those transition steps. So that is also a part of what they are needing to do in this exercise. Now, adding a whole other challenge to this. The other part of this is when we are doing the combination, I usually do it in groups so the dancers have more room to spread out. But each time they do the combination, it is always to a different song. So they're never dancing to the same song twice. And they're never hearing the same song twice in the room either. So I constantly cycle and change the music. And this is why I do that because a huge part of this exercise is also building on and working with musicality. So, if we have a fast song come up, I'd love to see how they take the combination with that fast song. Same thing with the slow. I like to see how they do with an instrumental piece versus a song that has lyrics. So I explained to them it is their goal to start wherever they'd like. It's their goal to sequence through the movement using transition, but also using the alphabet as our framework, and to always bring a different energy based on the song they're hearing. So they need to be able to listen in, take in those few counts of eight or few counts of six or fives or sevens or whatever it is at the start of the music and decide what is this music needing for movement and what and how am I going to deliver this? And then they go into action with the improv. So, another fun twist on this exercise is I this is October, so part of the reason why I wanted to bring this improv combination exercise up is because Halloween is coming up and Halloween can be such a fun time because maybe your studio does a costume week and this could be a really fun activity during costume week. And with that, maybe you're taking the alphabet now and you're creating specific movements that go along with different Halloween characters. So maybe A, you have Alice in Wonderland and you have a move that signifies Alice in Wonderland. And then maybe for B, you go into a bat. Maybe you do a big chassis with big bat wing arms. And then C, a cat. D, a dinosaur. E, an evil queen. F, Frankenstein. I mean, you could take this so many different ways, and it all honestly just takes like a quick Google search if you're having trouble or stuck on a letter, like Halloween characters that start with B. And so, like, for that combination, like I said, maybe you have a movement that signifies Alice. You go into the bat chasse. Maybe for the cat, you do some type of inversion that pulls you to the floor. And for D, dinosaur, maybe they get to create their own dinosaur pose. For evil queen, we stand up really regal and pull ourselves together. And for F, Frankenstein, maybe we have some type of transition that kind of looks like a zombie walk. And so these are all just different ways and different ideas that you can do this. Now, going back to the different music piece, with using different pieces of music, like I said, it really helps them to build their musicality and also the understanding of like how to move to a song as it comes on. And this really, I feel, helps build their artistry in their improv too, because it's not always familiar songs like, oh, I know this song, so I'm going to dance to it this way because I know what's coming up. It could be an unfamiliar song. So, outside of Halloween, if you're doing this activity and don't want to connect it with like a holiday, for example, when you're doing the different music um, elements, sometimes I do rounds. So, like this round that we're going to do is our ballet round. So, I'm going to be playing classical music and I want to see this combination done with the flair, style, and connection of ballet technique. All right, after that round, we're going to move into a jazz round. I want to see all of this movement now done to like upbeat or fun, sassy, energy, whatever, jazz style movement. And then after that round, we're going to pull out our lyrical ballads, and I want to see how you move this movement in a ballad and an emotional, dramatic piece. So there are it's always changing. It's always different. It's always unique every time they do it, not only for the exercise, but for themselves, because they have to think on the spot, okay, I just did this combination in the style of jazz, but now I have to do it as the style of contemporary. How am I going to switch this up? So that's always a fun one too, is changing up the music styles. But if this is your first time doing it in your classroom, I do recommend the first round always being instrumental because when you start throwing lyrics in there, it gets a little bit harder for them to recall the alphabet in their mind and to go back and think about what letter they're supposed to be dancing on at that time. And along with the first time, maybe you use different songs but of similar energy because it's just going to get some time getting used to this idea of not having specific counts for the movement that they're doing, even like specific structure, for them having to come up with the structure of how you get from A to B and things like that. That does take some thinking power. So maybe the first time you're doing this exercise in your classroom, you're using different songs, but of similar energy or a similar feel. And maybe like if you are doing it for Halloween, maybe during that, you're only using like Halloween or like spooky music or things like that. Along with holidays, I also do the same exercise at times around Christmas or the holidays. You know, we could do A for angel, B for bells, C for candy cane. I mean, you can really go so many different ways with this. But the reason why I'm bringing this exercise to Dance Teacher Pep Talk podcast is because it has been one of the most requested activities I've ever done in my classes. It is not only so much fun, but it has incredible learning potential involved. And seeing it year after year and seeing what the dancers bring to it really showed me the incredible value that this exercise holds because I could easily just give them a combination. I could give it to them with one piece of music that we're listening to. I could give them the structure. I could give them the how to and where and all of that. And that is really great a lot of the time because obviously that's more of like the natural form of dance and how we're learning. We'd be learning choreography. It's not always that we're doing improv. But the reason why I like changing it up this way is because it gets their brains to think differently. Like, okay, we're still doing a combination, but there's so much more responsibility and autonomy that comes from their decision making in this particular exercise. Another thing that I see huge growth with is musicality, because you're taking a simple set of movements. And also, I should preface this where I do not use the entire alphabet. I usually start off with like maybe 5 letters and then maybe like grow to 10 at the most. But it's because I want to see how they sequence in and out of the movement as well. And so, yes, back to the musicality. Because they're focusing on a small amount, it's really their choice. But the whole point of this is to make it work within the music. And a part of this, too, that I say is don't just end when you end in a way that makes sense in the music. So, in that respect, they're also practicing phrasing. They're also hearing when things begin and close. And I think that is just such a very important skill to work with and to understand. Because I don't know if this has ever happened in your classroom, but a lot of the time when we do combo, like the dancers will do the combo and it's like as soon as it's over they just drop their character and they just walk off the dance floor, but it's like there is such a disconnect from that moment where you just poured your heart and soul out in the combo and then all of a sudden it's like okay, back to dancer mode, back to human mode. So it's like how to connect and understand that like there needs to be that moment of follow through at the very end before you step away. Another reason why I love this exercise is because there are some dancers who truly require counts, who require that structure and like that setup. And this challenges them way beyond that to show them that you don't always need the counts and that you can make decisions based on when you feel is the right time to go or the right time to do something. But as I mentioned before, when we just do a regular improv combination, I mean, there's definitely value in that. But I had such a disconnect from structure and order that I wasn't really sure how to remember or recall all the movements that I needed to remember. And so using the alphabet helped me to place that. That was the strategy that I was looking for my students. And if you might ask, like, what age group? What age group do you see this with? I can see this age group being anywhere from like upper elementary through high school because you can set it differently to the age standard that you're working with. So, like maybe for my upper elementary, I'm not giving them as many letters, and maybe I'm giving them a little bit more direction. And then through high school, I'm giving less direction and more for them to make their own choices and their own decisions. I think another reason why the dancers love this exercise and request it of me is because they do get to make their own decisions. They feel more of themselves within the combination. And that's the other thing that is so cool about this because you're going to watch this combination over and over and over again, and it's never going to be the same. And it's never going to be the same person to person because each person is bringing their own individual energy into it as well and their own individual ideas. And it is so awesome watching the dancers watch each other do this combination because they get so excited and pumped up for each other. And I feel like it's also like one of the biggest hype moments that we have when we do this combination because it's like, wow, look at what so and so brought to the movement. Or, oh my gosh, did you see so and so? I've never seen her dance like that. And it's just so much fun because it really pulls us out of our shells and gets us to try new things. So I hope that you found some inspiration in today's idea to bring into your classroom. And if you have any questions about how to implement this, you can always ask on our Instagram at Dance Teacher Pep Talk, or you can email us danceteacherpeptalk@gmail.com. And just a reminder for the podcast, if you aren't already following, make sure that you follow on whatever podcast platform you listen to so that you don't miss out on any of the content. We have fresh episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. And on our Instagram page at Dance Teacher Pep Talk, we have tons of resources and bonus content there. So sometimes I do exercises like this as a podcast or as a podcast episode because it's just way too much information to put into an Instagram reel. But we do have other classroom tips and resources over there on our Instagram. So I just want to thank you so much for your listens and your support. I hope you have the most beautiful day, and we will talk soon.